show Tempo. I'm glad to have you on. And
Thank you for inviting me.
yeah, like I'm super excited. And you obviously had Law Mark on your show, and he recommended you as said you're a great guy, and I can see that. And yeah, going from for the conversation we're having, then like I was just gonna say, when you said that club was underneath the strip club, that's typical true British fashion, isn't it? Trying to find anywhere to just fucking run a night, doesn't matter where it is. You're
Yeah,
throwing a night there. It could be like in there's I DJed in a club that used to be an old like gunpowder storage place underneath a pub. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just
crazy.
wild, isn't it? We just find anywhere, warehouses, you name it, we can find it and throw a good party.
Exactly. But that's what I find the basics of like dance and underground house music is all about. Like it doesn't necessarily matter where it is. And I think like one of the first tracks of house was like when who was the godfather of house? Not Kerry Chandler.
Oh no,
Uh
Stacey Pullen is one of them.
yeah, there's
Yeah,
some
Kerry Sean, Frankie Knuckles.
Frankie Knuckles, that's
Yeah,
it. I think he played in somewhere that was like something called Warehouse. And
yeah,
that was where he like first started the movement of like
yeah.
house, warehouse, house. Like it caught that's how it caught the name on, I think. But it's like anywhere could be that kind of vibe, and that's what I love about it. Like it doesn't matter if it's in some corner shop or like underneath a tunnel. That's some things they're doing in London right now. Um,
Yeah.
like just on the back end of a truck. Like it could be anywhere. That's what I love
No,
about it.
they've done it like in a
Have you
kebab
seen?
shop, haven't they?
Yeah, exactly. Like transforming something like that. You wouldn't see that in a commercial kind of place, would you? You
Nah,
know?
nah.
But that's what I love about house and dance music. It could be any venue, like you're saying, and just yeah, as long as you've got a good crowd and a good beat to it, you've got a party.
Yeah, man. It's like they've done the kebab shop and it was like a pound for like 10 wings. And while you're getting your waiting for your wings to be cooked, you'll be raving it up to whatever you want, whatever they're playing, right, in the kebab shop.
Exactly.
They've done it like in a shoe shop in Bristol. I saw Skrillex do one store, like in somewhere in the UK, just randomly just showed up and started playing.
Crazy.
But
Absolutely.
it's good though. Um, so yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself then. Where you originally from, and like it's sort of start your journey from where you're from and how you got into electronic music.
So I am from York, hence the accent. Um, and I am actually labeled by quite a lot of my radio friends as like your unofficial Duracell Rocket Bunny. So they
Right.
see Northern as like really high energy, and I'm just like me. I'm just me. Like I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm just who I am. I'm bubbly. I'm whatever. I just go with the flow, and just try and talk to as many people as I can. And I'm from York, and yeah, moved down here to be with my partner, like I mentioned to you.
Yeah.
Didn't move down to be in, just came and visited, and luckily it worked out.
Yeah.
And then just since then, just really grown a network from London, in and around London. Done a few guest shows, just kind of getting my name out there, going to do like free slots with DJing, just to gain exposure. Landed a few good gigs. One in Soho, which was a 3 or 4 month long residency, really grew the fundamentals of DJing, reading crowds. Um, Built myself up through that, and then playing in gay venues in Soho as well. That's
Mm.
done quite well for me. Then went on to like with the radio play for Ministry of Sound, opening up the 103 room, supporting people like DJ SKT, Charlotte Van der Peer, if you've heard of her,
Yeah. Yeah.
Que Nada, I've heard supported them. And then yeah, it's just like propelled into being a resident for Fire now with Beyond Midnight.
Yeah.
You've heard of
Yeah.
those?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're every single Saturday, mate. They're just like, oh my God.
Pumping. Yeah.
It's 12 at night, like AM till 12 noon the next day.
Yeah. It's mad.
Crazy.
I went in because I DJed on Lightbox once. So I went in fire after. Because we
Hmm.
got like is the after party was in there 'cause one of my buddies was hosting a room there. And it was fucking
Yeah.
insane, man. Like I went in, it was nighttime. I walked out and it was like looked at the sun. I was like, oh, fucking, that's bright, like and it was like that in Egg as well. Yeah,
I mean, because the hour slots are like when James who runs Beyond asked me to play for Beyond, it can either be in the main, which is 2 hours, or it's in like the lounge or light box, which is usually 3 hours. So if
hmm
you get a slot like at 6 a.m. till 9, you come out of there and your eyes are just like what? Not on drugs, not on alcohol, not on
No,
anything. You just come out and you're like, oh my God.
yeah, like getting up for work, you're like, oh, what? Yeah,
It's that sting in the back of your eyes that I can
yeah,
never get over. But it's great fun. It is great fun.
I think it's good, like, because I say this to people over in Canada, is that you can go to a club like via Lightbox or egg or anything like that, right? And then you can do your clubbing, and then you can walk straight into a cafe and get a fry up after,
Yeah,
after your clubbing, right? And you know,
mad.
a lot of places
I
don't
think
do that.
like literally, I think there's a Pret right opposite the
Yeah,
station on the club. So I
yeah,
always go in there and get like the salmon roll or whatever it is with like mayonnaise and I think it's is it dill that they put it with?
yeah. I know
Really
exactly
nice.
what you mean.
But it's like mad how like people are waking up, going for their breakfast, getting their hit of coffee, and you're just coming out of there like joining them, like hello.
Yeah, but like been through the wars and they're like all dressed up
Yeah,
like
and you can always tell who's been in fire just by
yeah,
what they look like.
yeah. Oh dear. So go. Let's start then. What was like your inspirations when you were young? Then, like, obviously we brushed on to like drum and bass a little bit, but then obviously you grew out of that into sort of house like, at a young age. So how did that sort of develop?
I mean, so when I was in York and it was more commercial kind of vibes, that was when I was like really young, like teenager.
Hmm.
So it was day in York, and I think it kind of the love for house and underground dance music kind of developed coming once I grew up and came out of York. So when I was in college and ended college, my friends went on to do university in like Newcastle, Leeds, Manchester, and their night scene is obviously bigger than York's night scene.
Yeah.
So I think one of the first raves of um, house and underground dance music was Digital Newcastle to see Patrick Topping.
Oh yeah.
I love Patrick Topping.
He's a
Obviously, he's
geezer, isn't
Northern,
he?
so like Newcastle is. So I'm like, yep, my bedroom.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not Newcastle, but like we're nearby. But yeah, that was amazing. That was a great experience. But I think one of the biggest experiences was we went for a Loop warehouse rave in Newcastle as well.
Right.
And since that day, I remember like just being like absolutely blown away. It was like no phones, everyone was there, all dressed up like in themes. It goes hand in hand that we're actually near Halloween now. It's only a few weeks,
Yep.
and I love Halloween. I think Halloween's like one of the best times of the year.
I
Getting
don't love
dressed
a
up
bit of Halloween. Yeah.
for a party, dressed up like oh, love it. It's all about atmosphere.
Yeah.
If you add atmosphere
Yeah.
alongside music and a good crowd, banging. But
Sound
yeah,
like my
this
wife.
night. Yeah. But this night, it'll always stick by me because it was like there was no one on their phones. It was just everyone was there for the music. Like there's people outside in the smoking area. Everyone was chatting. Everyone was just vibing off each other. But the
Yeah.
one key element when I tell this story is like at the very end, I think the clocks went back. And what they did, they didn't announce it or tell anyone, but in true like underground house warehouse style, they so it was like a massive warehouse, but they had massive double doors
Yep.
to where the smoking area was in the entrance. So what they did when it hit 12 and the clocks went back, they shut the doors and they locked them. So anyone
Yeah.
that was like just chatting rubbish outside in the smoking area was kind of locked out and it was like made to
Yeah.
go home. But anyone that was left inside, they played for an extra hour.
Wow.
It was mad, like
Yeah.
absolutely mad. It was so cool. Obviously, you felt a little bit like, oh my God, are they going to let us out? But no one really cared because it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
just like, let's have it for one last hour and just go full ham. It was wicked. And that's when I was like, right, this is the type of stuff that I like because it's
And
just no care in the world. Like, it's just about the music. It's great.
so that was like the turning point for you then to really get open your
Oh,
eyes into
massive.
like the clubbing scene and what were like the inspirations of like because we touched on a bit of 80s music, 90s. We touched on quite a lot of that, and that's quite a wide spectrum in music. And I mean, like I said to you, I love the 80s. Everything about the 80s I love. Like just the
Mhm.
electronic sort of sampling and getting involved, like starting to dabble into the old electronic scene. Do you know what I mean? So,
Mhm.
you know, what sort of inspirations did you have back then as well?
So I always bang about to my partner, anyone that like listens to me on radio. I say it on radio like a lot. I love remixes of the 90s and 80s kind
Yeah.
of stuff. Like I love obviously the originals of them, like some classics you can't beat. Of course you can't.
Yeah.
But I think as artists in the modern day, if they remix something from the 90s, like it's amazing. Just with a little bit of a heavier kick drum or something like that, or loop a little bit on like a hook or a riff to make the drop a bit longer. Not to completely, strip away the original, but to play homage to the original, I think it's amazing. And I'll always say to everyone on radio and all my friends, I wish I grew up in the 90s. I think the whole like scene in the 90s, I
Mhm.
imagine it to be similar to what I experienced in Loop in the warehouse, the story I just told. Like I imagine it like that all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I didn't grow up in the 90s, so I can't speak for it. But the videos that you see online, the rare videos you see, it's just like people just like don't care. They're just crazy. Not pictures, no phones. Do you get what I mean? It's all for the music, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what it's that the authenticity that the 90s music and 80s music have, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I produce music myself, and listening back then, you can tell it's not up to the standard of the modern era. Like it's not like technically the most amazingly made music, but
Hmm.
it's probably the biggest music that we know of today. Do you get what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of foundation
Like,
was of like, that sort of era though, wasn't it? Like you say, it's
yeah,
and again, even back in the night, you're right about the 90s. Even in the 90s, it was crazy because it's like I know like house was big back then. I loved house and drum and bass, the jungle and reggae, ska music. But even just pop like Spice Girls was just pumping. Even blokes listened to it, and it was just like good era of music, right? Everyone was like, I don't know, everything was just a good era of music back then
it's
in the
like
90s. Yeah.
even in music today. Like I make my own music, and I listen to old music because some of the rave stabs that they use, like you can hear it in some of the music today. Like I think James Hype has just released a track called Control. I think it's called
Yeah.
Control, something like that, and that uses like a 90s acid stab on the drops. Like you can hear it. It's completely inspired by 90s. So even now, we're like what 20 years or something ahead, and it's still
Yeah.
with us. Like I love it. It's just it's inspired and motivates everyone in this day and age. I think it's so cool, the 90s music.
That's like I saw like a video someone remixed Britney Spears Hit Me Baby One More Time but made a proper like dirty drop of DM like jump up D&B. And again, like
Yeah.
you say, people are sampling like this stuff now that was kind of, as some people we look back and think, oh, it's cheesy pop, which it is in some way, but they're
Yeah.
incorporating that into this heavy underground stuff now, and it's
Yeah.
kind of cool to see that, right? This generation's
It,
doing that with that style of music.
but that's what I touched on just then when I was talking, is like when an artist does that, I really feel like it tells a lot about them as people.
Hmm.
Like they're almost like taking something from a legend before or whoever they've loved before, and they're crafting it into something modern so people can either they can relive it and the public can relive it through a different way, but with their own
Hmm.
spin on it. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
playing homage to the artist, but it's like, hang on a minute, I love that. Let's make it like this, and then new people can still enjoy it, and then they can probably go, oh, this is from then. I'll go listen to the original. And then it's like it's a domino effect of like keeping it alive. It's amazing. Keeping the scene
yes.
alive for it as well. It's great.
And I think that's good for the scene, and it's good to like introduce people to different styles of music like you say, like they've never seen before, right?
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of music, I think, as well, like you say. So when you got into DJing, what was your like first ever exposure to like mixing tracks? Like, was it CDs? Was it, did you collect any CDs? Because mine was CDs and vinyl, but mainly CDs.
Yeah.
What
So
was that sort of
I've
part?
I've fully grown up in the digital era. So I'm like a digital USB record box baby. I'm a lockdown born fully DJ. I dabbled in it when I was younger at house parties. Like I mentioned with the club underneath the strip club
Yeah.
in York. I managed to get a little bit of a slot there. It didn't really go anywhere because I was young. I didn't really know if I wanted to do it, blah blah blah. Dabbled in it there. And then in lockdown, I was doing practicing DJing on my laptop on a DDJ 400 in my bedroom. And I was like, I love this. My partner, I absolutely love it. couldn't beat Match to save my life.
Yeah.
Looking at YouTube stuff. Whereas in the mansion, want to play on like sync and all that because that's what they just told me to do. Like if you've got the music, sometimes play on sync because obviously that helps. Now I wouldn't touch sync at all because I know how much of a train crash that can get to when one's like not on the grid and the other one's off the grid and you try and play it and it's just it's crazy. And yeah, just came out of lockdown and like I said, with getting gigs in the bar in Soho and stuff like that, that's just where it's kind of come to now, to be honest.
Yeah. I kind of feel like the COVID thing broke a lot of clubs but made a lot of artists.
Yeah, the demand for gigs is like completely like overtook what venues are after. Like if you know what I
Yeah.
mean, like venues like there's artists aren't struggling, but like there were so many people that wanted to come out of lockdown DJing. Like it's the competition is even tougher now than it ever used to be.
Yeah, because I mean, I go back to UK twice a year, maybe three times. And with this current sort of climate of DJs now, like, what do you look for in a DJ? We're going to touch on your radio show and your DJ sets, but what do you look for in a DJ when selecting DJs for your show?
For my show, I look for. I mean, it's difficult because it's almost like. I mean, they've got to obviously be a good DJ.
Yeah,
They've got to be able to mix. It looks are they out in the scene? Are they gigging a lot? Are they proving their worth? I don't necessarily look for like followers. That doesn't
yeah.
really mean that much to me, like a
Nah,
big following.
that's cool.
Um, it's not to me, that's not really applicable. Like if you've got something to say, you've got something that you've got an experience with, or you've reached out to me before, you've made a connection with me, like even just saying hi or something, not just dropping a email, oh, I DJ, here's my track, would you have me on your show? Because I'm a human being at the end of the day.
Yeah, you can ask
You
me
know
how
what I
are
mean?
my
Like,
days going. Like, yeah.
exactly. Like, oh, here's my track as well. Do you want to hear that? Which you're not going to put on a radio show, are you? But yeah, it's just I don't know. I think it's just mainly people I've met in the scene. Like I've got a guest coming on in November who has done a lot of events in at XOYO, and he's actually booked me for my first time playing at XOYO not so
Oh,
long back.
nice,
And
nice.
he's been in like Ibiza. He's done like so much stuff that people don't necessarily know about. If you were just talking to him face to face, people who have a
Mhm.
story and giving them a platform to tell it, I feel like that's more important. Obviously, you've got to be able to DJ and have good music and like an angle as well for
Yeah,
radio
yeah,
because that helps.
for sure.
Because otherwise, you're not going to be able to talk about much. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But if you've got a story, I really like using the platform to allow them to tell that. Any experience through the scene or anything that can inspire anyone as well. Because
Yeah.
there's so many people on the fence about it even today. Oh, DJing's not a long time career. It's not this. It's not that. But to me, it's like if that inspires someone to pick up a DDJ 400 and start mixing tracks by themselves off their own back in the bedroom like I did, all for it.
Yeah, and
Like,
again, like you say, your way you did it could inspire someone. But I also think I want to touch on this as well, like social media nowadays, right? It's it
don't get me
shows
started on that, mate.
it shows like an instant success, but it takes a lot of hard work. Do you know what I mean? Like you said, through lockdown, you worked hard, you learned stuff, things like that. But people think they can just pick up a controller and think, oh, I'll go on Instagram, so I'm a DJ, and then like, boom, here I am. It's and unfortunately social media shows that to us. But and that's why, like you do with your guests, and like I'm asking you, with my guests as well, is their experience and that, like you say, can inspire other people as well.
So with me with social media, it's all the huge thing about it, I believe, is like smoke and mirrors. Everything like when I first started, I would compare myself to so many people on social media.
Yeah, man.
Like, and it would really get me down. It would be
Yeah,
like, why can't I play for this venue? Why can't I play for that? And there's people that I know who have a very little following and they're getting gigs every weekend.
yeah,
They have less followers than me. I think I've got like maybe 3,000 or something, which doesn't really matter. Like, doesn't it's good to have that. It's nice to have that. It's a good leverage. getting
Hmm.
gigs and stuff like that. It's all about leverage. I've found in the scene. You know, what can I give you? Give me. It's business at the end of the day. Do you
For
know what I
sure,
mean?
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why it's called music one side and then business one side because you've got to be
Exactly.
good with music, but you've also got to be a business head. And I feel like if you use social media as a business tool, you'll skyrocket. Like no matter your following or anything like that. Obviously, reaching out to Fabric with 2,000, 3,000 followers, they're going to be like, "Who the hell is this guy?" You know,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
unless you've
yeah.
got a Beatport number one and they're in the scene, they know that you are that, and you're on the
Yeah.
rise. It's yeah, but social media to me is it's a business tool, and it should be used for business only. My personal view. Obviously, it's subjective. Anyone can do what they want on it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
But that's exactly what Ed Sheeran said. You know, he said it should just literally be used for promoting your business
I
because
think
you
I've
can
seen
get,
him say that as well.
yeah, because you can get
Yeah.
sucked in and it just destroy you. It did, like for me, it did for me a little bit, you know. And
Does it eat you up? Because
oh,
you start comparing yourself, and I call it the artist saboteur. You
yeah,
start comparing yourself to every other artist in there. You scroll through and you see these. Oh, he's got like 300 likes on this. He's got this many views on his reel, and it's like, why can't I do it? I've just made a similar video or something. And it's like, well, as soon as you start comparing yourself and you're losing track of music and your business mindset, that's when you'll just start to go down.
yeah,
And if you're getting like that, I'd advise to just lock your phone away for a day. Because I do that on the weekends a lot. I've started now just locking it away and just making music. Because when I'm here, where I am now, this is where I make music. And I light a candle. It's like a caramel toffee scented candle. It's great. It's amazing. Smells nice. And I just stop for 10, like 5 minutes and I go, right, music mode. And then I lock my phone away and I just go straight into music. And the progression I'm getting from it, it's mad.
that's wicked. Yeah, because again, like I was going to ask you about like your producing. We'll touch base on that as well. Because my wife does the same thing. She's a candle freak, and she's like, "Oh, here's some candles." She likes them all around the house, and she's like, "You need one in your studio." I'll go, "But why?" She goes, "Trust me." So
Trust.
I
It
do one
works.
now, right? She's got like some like wood burning one or whatever. But anyway, it is. I agree. It does help. You know, it does
It does
sort of calm
help.
you down, right? And lock. You're totally right about locking your phone away as well. That's that's a I think one of the most vital things for producing. And again, like you said, with regards to um uh when you look at yourself sabotaging, you're comparing yourself to other people, you kind of like we was touched on base before, when you're doing your music, that's your identity of your music. And when you're comparing yourself with other people, you're losing what you started doing for the passion because you're comparing
Lose
yourself.
you lose who you are in all the noise. It's extremely
Yeah,
easy for that to happen,
yeah,
but you do massively lose yourself and who you are and what you want to put out there. I feel like producing music now because I'm really into like I was into like when I first started getting into house and going clubbing, it was really tech housey.
yep,
But I feel like the sound of today is really going to like the 130 BPM hard dance.
yeah.
Like if you look at the sound that Trick are putting out right now, like it's like 135,
It's
134,
nuts,
136, even
crazy.
just
Yeah,
crazy, like ham, ham, ham. Look at Hannah Lang. I can never say that name,
yeah, yeah,
but she's coming out with such crazy music, but it's great and it's changing the scene. I mean, even artists like Calvin Harris, they're completely redeveloping who they are as artists. Like they're
yeah.
coming out with 140 BPMs now. Like
Wow.
if you listen to the original Calvin Harris that we know, that you think of when I grew up, it's like when I met you in the summer. It's not like 140 like offbeat heavy
Yeah,
bass lines.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It's like it's mad how it's changing. But I really get my influence and inspiration for music from Trick label. That's a
yeah,
big label that I get a lot of inspiration from. And people like Lock and Load, if you know Lock and Load,
yeah.
I'm really on that vibe. Um,
Nice.
yeah, really, really energetic, housey, old school stuff, 90s inspired stuff. Yeah.
That's cool, man. That's really cool. So, how did you get into producing then? Like, what? How did you? Oh, this is the conversation I really get interested in as well. And
Yeah.
how did you get into it? Yeah,
So you look at every festival lineup, you look at all the big names, they all produce, don't they? Like they do. They all
yeah,
produce. And that was like when we were talking about social media and all that stuff, it was like, you know, the impact of looking because it does make you look at yourself. Like social media obviously can eat you up, but it does force you to reflect and look at like what you could be doing that's better. And I was like, I'm
Yes.
DJing, I'm in Soho doing all this stuff, but no one knows me. Like the exposure is getting there, like I'm getting gigs, but I want to be like up there, you know? I don't want to be Calvin Harris or like someone absolutely Jamie Jones or someone absolutely crazy. That's beautiful if it happens. But I just want to make music. I want to play music and make people dance for the love of
Yeah.
music.
Hmm.
That's my like thing that I want to do. That's my like all-time goal. Okay. And I was like, I'm not gonna be able to do that without producing music and having a tag to me to do that.
Yes.
And yeah, just was like, I need to just plunge myself into it. Because that alongside DJing is always going to build you up. If you just DJ, that's great. You're going to get somewhere, but having something to as a tag with music itself to put your name onto it will just make you go higher. So that was the whole reason why I started producing. Um, Learned it a lot off my back. I think I've done one production lesson
Okay,
with
what was that one?
LSA.
Oh, okay, yeah.
LSA, yeah,
Yeah.
was really good. Learned the fundamentals, and then just kind of learned a lot of YouTube. And then I got a sound engineer who I'm building the relationship with called Shane Mahon. He's really good, amazing sound engineer, and he's just spent a lot of time with me, just over Zoom, like this myself, like me and yourself, and just showing me little bits and tricks. Learn a lot through books, the old school way.
Books are
Uh,
great, man. Yeah,
Books
they
are
are.
actually they're a dark horse, mate.
They are. Yeah, 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 yeah. I
They are.
totally agree. Yeah.
Um, I've actually got. Have I got the book? Yes, I do. This is the one that me and Shane always talk about. So I've got one called the Mixing Engineer's Handbook. But if you know Attack magazine,
Yep.
Se- Secrets of Dance Music,
Oh, there you go.
this honestly says what it does on the tin, mate.
Yeah,
It
that's
tells you
cool.
all the secrets you need to like really make your track proper like stand out. I swear by this book. I think I'm like three-quarters in, and I'm like the amount of learning I've made just from this one book and the other one a little bit, but this one is like crazy. It's like so good.
You have to
Um,
send me a name to that because I've been producing for like over 10 years, but I still learn stuff every day. Like, there's every day's a school day, I say, right?
it
And
is, and that lid is never gonna
no,
fall or be closed. You'll always be learning stuff with
exactly,
music.
yeah.
I love it. That's why I love production.
So reading books, yeah, definitely a dark horse, yeah. And going from that then, so you do you use Ableton?
I do, yeah.
You do, yeah. So, um, what was your first track ever like that you made compared
Oh
to
my
what
God.
it's like now?
Absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. No arrangement, no nothing. Just yeah, terrible. It's almost like you when you first picked up your decks as a DJ, your mixing was absolutely atrocious. Like
Yeah.
train wreck every time. Um yeah, I'd put like the claps with the kick on the first beat, on the downbeat. I didn't even know what a downbeat or an upbeat was or an offbeat. I was just messing with it. Never knew what any of the buttons were. It's like a spaceship, isn't it? It's like, and
Yeah,
now I'm
man.
just, all the shortcuts. It's crazy. So like anyone that wants to get into producing, and I would advise them 100 million% to just throw yourself into it. Take each step of it, each day of a time at a time, and just slow down. You're not going to be Jamie Jones, Calvin Harris on day one. It's like a gym. You've got to really just keep at it, and you will learn them.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the track that I made, I've got it, and it's so bad, so
Yeah.
bad.
Did you ever play it out?
I've played one of them out, was one of my firsts, and it wasn't actually that bad. The crowd actually did quite like it, but
Yeah.
you could tell it wasn't. It wasn't. I even did a little master myself, and it was just like the level of volume was so low compared to other people's music that I was like, right, I need to go back to the drawing board. I need to actually learn how to make music first instead
Yeah.
of just making it.
So yeah, I don't look at that as a bad thing. I don't think that's a good thing because then it makes you reflect on that track, right, like you say, and then
Absolutely.
move forward,
I
right?
like you just said, Brad, to touch on that, I try my hardest to and anyone that does produce that wants to get into it, I would always advise them to do this. I never delete my back catalogs because you can always learn from them, and you can
Yeah.
always that it's a nice trajectory to look at when you're learning and getting better, to look back and move forward. Um, I feel like that always betters yourself as well when you do that because you can always go back to that track and add things and change it to what you know of today. Because it might actually be a really good song. It might actually be creatively, it might be amazing, but just
Mhm.
technically made, might be terrible. But a few years down the line, if you keep that and don't get rid of it, you go back, you might have a bang on your hands. You never know.
That's true, man. Yeah, and again, that information right there is like I think it's definitely vital information because again, like going back to the social media thing, you see some people do this 15-second clip of like making a song, and they're like, "Why can't I make a song in 15 seconds?" You know, I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, let's hold your horses now." You know what I mean? Like, so
It's
what you're
smoking.
saying is perfect. Yeah.
They're editing it and they're changing it around to make it look 50 seconds long.
So going on from that journey, then from the your producing journey, from making them songs and growing from that. When did you sort of start to think, right, this is sort of clicking really well now, and I'm kind of understanding what I need to do to make the tracks that I like and I'm inspired by?
Um, so only within like the last few months, to be honest. I've been doing it in the background since I started in lockdown. I think it was a few months after lockdown, where it was like, right, comparing myself to other people, they're making music, need to be doing it. And I didn't do it like drastically. I just learned and learned and learned like quietly in the background. Learned all the fundamentals, and it wasn't actually. And I do have a big shout out to Shane, who I use as a sound engineer. He spent a good 30 minutes to an hour with me, completely out of his time. I didn't pay for him or anything like that. Just a nice, genuine guy. And it
Yep.
wasn't until I really had that talk with him because I sent him my first track, and he was like, "Oh, it's really good. This, that, this, that, but there's this, that, this, that," and it crushed me a bit. But I was like, right, because I'm really open to critiques.
Yep.
Um, and it's like I said, just a few months ago that he did this for me, and like he literally, we did a Zoom call like this, and he was like, "Right, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. Change this, and you'll fly." Since then, I'm just like boom, boom, boom. Every track, I'm like just creatively so much better. Because I had like you obviously do producing, so I
Mm.
had like my kick not in the same bus as my like drums. I had it
Yep.
with my bass. And he was like, no, put your kick with your drums, put like a compression, make a second bus to like your hi-hats, your claps and everything, put like a side chain kick on that, side chain to your kick on that with like 30% wet and change the release and all that so it's sounding pumpy, not too much that it takes the drums out, but it's
Hmm.
like making the kick punch through. So little tweaks like that. And now I'm just like, yeah, it's time now to just make music and just try and get it out there because that's another job.
Yeah, and again, we're going to touch on that as well. Like, because when I do, I take the low end out of all my hats and claps and stuff, right? But I literally just keep the low end in the kick and the bass line, right? And that's something someone told me. It was just like, "Do you want an easy fix?" I'm like, "Yeah." They just said take the low end out of all the cymbals and little elements and just keep it
Yeah.
all on that, right? And
Yeah,
like you said, a bit of
I
wet and things, and it kind of fattens it a bit. And yeah,
I think as well, a big trick that I do, which is actually I learned through this book, through Sequence of Dance Music by Attack Magazine. Shout out to Attack Magazine there.
yeah.
um, was to split your low end. So split your bass. I don't know if
Yep.
you know this trick, Brad. Yeah. So you
I've
split
got
your
I use Reason, but they've got CVs and CV splitters and audio splitters, so you can split stuff and merge. They're mergers and splitters, but yeah, I kind of get what you're saying.
Okay, so yeah, so usually what I'll do, because I like to control every single element as itself. Um, so if I'll make the track as I make it, and then when I'm ready to like mix down and get like, space and a nice like clean spectrum in the mix,
Hmm.
frequency wise, I will use 9 times out of 10, I will split the bass between sub, attack, and any other layers on top of that. Because
Okay.
then what allows me to do is keep the sub clean, nice and clean, usually just a sine wave. Um, with a few like wideners or a bit of stereo chorus on there just to make it nice and fat and juicy.
Hmm.
Um, but it allows me to change the sub and the mid and attack bass like separately. So if I think
Mm.
the sub's too loud in that one channel of just bass, um, I'm not going to be able to change that unless I do like a low cut on there. But then what that risks is me also changing any information on the mid bass. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So And obviously, the sub with the kick is the biggest thing, one of the hardest things to get right with your low end,
Yeah,
I think.
the biggest. It's the biggest driver, but it's also the biggest fucking headache. Yeah,
Yeah, it can
yeah,
really ruin a mix if you don't get that right.
yeah, yeah. I hear you, man. Trust me, I've been fighting with that for years.
You'll never stop fighting with that,
No,
honestly.
no, it's a fucking it's an uphill battle that you're never gonna win. But I guess you just have to embrace the best part of it. I guess.
Yeah.
Um, and so you've made some tracks then. So what was your way of getting your track signed?
So I haven't actually got any of them signed yet.
No, but that's what I'm saying. So like building up like to get signed, like how are you approaching that? So I should have worded
Come,
that better. How are you like approaching to get tracks signed or preparing for that? Like are you building up a back catalogue, certain EP? Yeah, sorry, go on. I'll let you
yes,
say sorry.
yes. No, you're literally you're banging it all on the head there. Like,
Okay.
I think what I've learned in life is biding your time is very important. Obviously,
Mm.
there's no time like the present. Absolutely not. Like the present is like today's today. You've got to do something with it. You know, you can't just sit around not doing anything. But I feel like if you've got, because I'm at the minute with my music, I'm at a point where I'm really happy with it. I know my channel and my sound, and I think
Yeah.
that's probably the hardest things as an artist is actually knowing your sound
Yeah,
and what you want
definitely.
your sound to be. That's very difficult because I struggled with it for years, and only now I'm like, yes, this is what I want. Um, and like you say, building a back catalogue, my plans for releases and stuff are in 2024. So next year, over the next few months, I really want to work on my networks with producers, use the radio as leverage for that as well. That helps. Um, Work with them, maybe collaborate with them on something. Um, and yeah, just build the back catalogue of bangers really and just bide your time. My actions are to write a plan for each song. When do I want it released? What month? My music I like to make is usually in major keys. So it's quite happy because I'm 9 times out of 10 a very happy person in life. I don't
Yeah.
like to be sad. Um, and even when I am sad, I really try and just do something to up myself, whether it's through music or whatever I do. And I want to portray that onto people as well through my music.
Hmm.
And usually that's like with summer.
Yep.
Like I spoke to quite a few producers who produce in the winter, and they're like, "Oh, I just want to make sad music in the winter." And I'm like, "Yeah, I get that." But if you build something in the winter that's happy, you then got it as a catalog for next summer.
For sure.
Um, So yeah, 2024 summer, just before it is when I'm gonna like reach out to BBC Introducing all these like radios that because the platforms are there. I feel like you've just got to have, like you say, a back catalogue. You've got to have a plan. You can't just jump straight into it because you regret it down the line. And I actually spoke with Law, who has been on the Rave Room with yourself, and he said to me, he said that plan is so good because he wished that he did that. He obviously doesn't
Yeah.
regret it, like as much as that might have sounded, but he does wish that he had a bit more of like patience with getting something out and really like honing in on what he wants as an artist.
Yeah.
Because then people will hear it and they'll go, "Oh, that's a Jerry Tempo track. Oh, that's a Lord Mark track. Oh, that's a Brad from Rave Room's track." I don't know his second name, so
That's all right. It's all good. Yeah, yeah. Slade. It's
or
Slade,
your
but yeah.
DJ name.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I think it's important to come out the like first impressions in anything is important, isn't it? So
I think it is, yeah. I know people say you shouldn't judge by book by its cover, but first impressions give you a foundation of what it could be. Doesn't
yeah,
mean it exactly is that, but it can give you a foundation of okay, as human beings, we naturally, observe things in life and think, okay, it could be that, but let's look into it further. And then as you release more music, that shows your true identity of your sound, right?
yeah,
And like you said earlier, you got music and business, which is the music business, obviously. And like you said, you're building a back catalogue and you're preparing that. So, and social media, like you said, is should be used for promotion and business. So, when you're doing this stuff and you get, like you say, you're getting stuff ready for 2024, are you building like artwork? Are you organizing all that sort of stuff and having that sort of plan as well? Because this information is great for people listening as well.
absolutely. You've
Yeah.
got to. I mean, at the end of the line, if there's always a self-release option,
Hmm.
if if you're making music, you're sending it to thousands of labels, and every single one's going no. You can always self-release. Like it's worked for a lot of people. There's a lot of platforms nowadays that you can do it. So I'll make my own artwork. I have like a folder for every single track that I think I want to release. Because remember, you don't always have to release every track you make, which is very important.
That's very true.
Don't always think what you're making, you are going to release it, because that will always happen. You might later on the line be like, I like it, but yeah, it's not really my identity. So you've got to be a little bit clinical with yourself and what you're making, I think. And yeah, like you just touched on, like I'm making artwork. I have even like a white label kind of like write up of what the song's about, what's its inspiration, influences on the track. I mean, I've just made one called What's Happening Here that has a massive inspiration from Danny Bond's Dominator on Trick, if you've heard that track.
Yep.
So that's in the write up. So these little things, preparing for, which a record label might potentially ask, I think is very important to have. And artwork, obviously, that's not 100% super important. If it helps you like vision what your track's about, like, because that's why I do it. Obviously, the label will just override that and they'll do whatever artwork they want that will match the track for them. But if that helps you vision your track, by all means, do it, definitely. But yeah, I have everything in a finished music folder, 2023, ones I really want to release, and then I put the date and schedule for when I want to get it out there.
That's sick. And like you say, if you self-release as well, you can do your own artwork and start practicing that. It's also a form of therapy, I think. Like I'm going to touch base on this quickly and not dive too deep into it because there's loads to talk about. But like you're saying, you like making happy music. I do think producing music is a form of therapy in my eyes. You know, like the way you are that day. You know, you can make a gritty song. Oh, I'm in a bit of a pissed off mood today. Someone cut me up on the motorway, or you know, whatever ballpark stuff.
Yeah.
And then you make your happy stuff, right? You know, and I think
I
that's
think one of the biggest artists that is probably the biggest artist that I know of today is the King of Pop, Michael Jackson. Like
okay. Yeah.
you listen to his music and the timeline of his life, like you can tell, you can feel every emotion in his music going through whatever era and time he was doing in his life.
Hmm.
When he had all the things with the paparazzi and like all the media, like Bad and all those type of songs, you know, and then like the whole Earth song and all that, Man in the Mirror, all those things like changed the world. Like you could tell what he was feeling through his music.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
that's like you're saying, like it is therapy. He was using his music to portray whatever message he wanted, and that's what we do as artists every day.
Yeah. Definitely. So go on your producing side. Then, do you have like a set like template now? Like, what's your producing process? Like, explain that a little bit, because
Template. I am a huge fan
yeah.
for templates.
Okay, cool.
Um,
Yeah, it's not just me then.
absolutely. I love them. I have a starter preset that I've custom made. Um, so you can obviously change the settings in Ableton so when you open it, it's all ready to go. So
Yep.
you can change your default settings. But I didn't realize that until after I'd made this starter preset. So I
Hmm.
just go in, I don't care what it looks like. I just go Command O, open, and go straight to my starter preset. And then that's everything nice and neatly tucked away in its own bus. So I've got one for drums, I've got one for bass, I've got one for percussion, one for mids and synths, one for strings, one for piano, one for effects, builders, textures, all nice and neatly tucked away in its own little group. And then it's also got all the sends, returns on it, all ready to go. And I think the only instrument I have on is a kick, so that I've just got a beat straight away. So I just press spacebar and I just go straight into it. And I think it's just a sample from Splice called IB for Kick.
That'll do.
But it's nice and thumpy. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it really gets me in the mode of like, you know,
Yeah.
let's make some music. Yeah, that's how I start every single song. I usually like we touched on the candle. I come in here and I go, Tuesdays is usually my music production days, and I like turn all the lights off. I put my candle on. I like sit, just like have a little like 5 minutes and go, right, you're in music mode, and just start, and then just
Yeah.
yeah, just work creatively. Try and get a song kind of even in session view. I like using session view a lot. I think a lot of artists don't use session view that much. They use arrangement view more in house. I've
Okay.
heard. I don't know if you're the same, Brad.
I don't understand what you mean by is this an Ableton thing? Because I'm not. I don't use
Oh, are
Ableton.
you not Ableton?
No, I'm Reason. Sorry,
Oh, okay.
I've been
So
using
yes,
Reason since like Reason 4.
right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ableton has like a session view, which is like a standard kind of mixer view. So you've got
Hmm.
like your mixer volume channels and all that, and then but then you've also got arrangement view. So everything you jam out in session view. So you can make kind of like your riff in session view. You can make your intro in session view. Then all you have to do is record it, and it will transfer into arrangement view. If
Oh, I
that makes
get you now.
sense.
Yeah, it's kind of something
So
similar to Reason. Yeah,
yeah, so you can
yeah.
jam out like as much as you want in session view, get the basics going, and then put it in arrangement view. Um, so I'll usually get that done, arrange it, get the track finished, and then I'll step away.
Hmm.
I'll give it like maybe a few days or a week, go do what I need to do with DJing or, chase up on some invoices because that's a killer as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, but I feel like if you try and smack it out within one day and one session, your brain is going to be fried because if you're already in that creative mindset making a track, you're in creative mode. You're not in logical, I need to mix down what's this frequency. I don't like that harshness on that frequency kind of mode. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you're
yeah, definitely.
automatically like, oh, now it doesn't sound the same, or now it's like taking the fun out of it. If you step away for a few days, come back, you're also going you're not only going to have fresh ears and notice things that you didn't notice in the creative mode. You're also going to have that intent of right. I need to mix down. I need to get it sounding full, wide, good mono compatibility, all that stuff that's important. You're going to be in that mindset.
Yeah, yeah,
So I feel like that's so important because otherwise your brain will be fried. That's what I
yeah,
used to.
yeah. Because I used to do that, and then I kind of just fell out of love with producing for a few years. I was like, fuck this. I hate
Yeah,
it, everything, right? And you're right. I'm learning from this bit as well. Actually, is that bring you creative mode, which is your silly mode, right? Like I've got hardware, and I'll just Dead Mouse, prime example. He said the same thing. He said half the shit when I'm creating stuff, I don't even know what I'm making. I just fucking
whatever he's doing. Yeah,
just whatever, right? And then build it around that. And then he said most of my biggest tracks have come from that. And
yeah.
I'm taking your advice now because I'm a guy that's like, I need to start and I need to do this and do this and do this. And you're right. I know deep down I know it's right that I should be, you know,
But as
yeah,
creatives, Brad, we get carried away because we're loving what we're doing,
yeah,
you know?
exactly, yeah,
And it's
yeah,
like also I've learned quite recently is like don't get so hepped up on instruments and the elements that you think sound good at that moment. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah,
don't you can remove that element. If you think it's not working, scrap it. Like get rid of it. Or just turn the channel off and see how it sounds without that element. Because I found
yeah,
that so much in recently. Some elements you put in there creatively and you're like, oh, something sounds a bit off. Try removing something. Maybe it might open a bit of space in the low end or the high end or something like that. Or maybe you've
hmm
got too many drums in there. Um, I think a massive track by Ben Helmsley, "Through to You." If you've heard that,
Oh, I haven't heard that one. No,
that is such a tune,
I probably
and
would have heard of it actually, but I don't know the name. But yeah,
it's he's done like a tutorial on it. And he said he's gone through it, and it's like probably one of the most. He said to himself, it's probably the most basic um, track he's ever made, like ever.
yeah,
Like very basic drums, just hi hat, clap, kick, and all that. But it's so impactful because it's less. It is more. Like it's mad,
yes. I know you said that. I've
and it
said
sounds
this.
cleaner. It sounds cleaner because there's less.
Yeah, because I remember watching when Jamie Jones did "Hungry for the Power" remix and
Love
some
that
other
track.
stuff. That's a great track, isn't it? He said that one of them tracks, I can't remember if it was "Hungry for the Power," only took him 45 minutes to make because it's so basic. And going back to Dead Mouse, he said, whatever first idea you have, and this is goes off of what you said, whatever first idea you've had, stick with it because you'll change it and you'll hate it more than the original version of what you did, which I totally
Yeah.
agree with. And and do you think like music now is so there's too much involved? And like you say, when it's more basic, it's more less is more. Do you think there's too much in music now when producing?
Um, I think it just comes down to being really critical with what you're making.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, you look at like the minimal kind of genre and stuff like that, like Chris Stussy, they haven't really got a lot going on with the drums.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, usually a kick, hi-hat, a close hi-hat to make it like shuffle off each other, a clap or a snare with the clap. And it's not usually a lot going on in there. It's more
yeah,
aimed at like the synths and the emotion behind it. Um, I think you've just got to be critical. Like, I think the song that I've just made, which I'm getting back for mastering tonight, I'm really happy with it. I'm really pleased with it. But I've used like three top loops in the
oh
track.
wow, yeah,
I've made like the fundamental drums for myself, but then I've used like a shaker here and there. I've used like some breakbeat top loops in there to really make it like pop a bit.
hmm,
I don't get hepped up on using top loops and samples for people. Like honestly, like if it sounds good, it's going to be good.
yeah,
Um, but in response to your question, is there too much involved? I think it's quite subjective to that track.
hmm,
Like if you want it to be busy and it works well, as long as it sounds, you know, well technically made, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think that's
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
And also if it's in line with what you want your songs to sound like, then that's fine.
yeah,
Um, but obviously having too much going on can really ruin a song, a mix. It
yeah,
can be very
yeah.
hard to mix as well.
Yeah, because someone asked me the question, and I was like, I don't know actually. I think I'm going to relay that to my guests and ask them because everyone's opinion's different. So I always like to hear other people's opinions on these things and see what I have to say about it. Because obviously, music is so like out there and different, right? And everyone has different views. Um, but it's yeah, like you're right. Yeah, I mean, it all depends if you can mix it well, if you can do this and do that, and that's a big, big element. And going on to your your producing, what sort of plugins do you use? Oh,
Plugins
yeah, like what are
is
your go-to like plugins because they might be good for someone else who's or wants to get into
yeah.
producing or yeah,
Yeah, you're completely right. The plugin world, I've not really delved so far into it. There's so many plugins that you could use. You've obviously got your mainstream ones like Serum and all those ones. I use, for the life of me, if I can remember it. So for my bass, I like to use Massive. Massive's
hmm
a really good one.
hmm
They usually do really good deals. I think it's quite expensive when they don't have a sale, but Christmas is coming up, so they usually do really good sales at Christmas. Do the plugin
yeah,
creators?
yeah,
I use Massive. I don't use Fab Filter. I've thought about getting it, but I feel like the EQs and stuff bog standard on Ableton are really good. Compression wise, I use stock plugin on compression. Um, there's loads of compression tools out there that you could use. A lot of the Ableton stock stuff is really really well made, like really
yeah.
really well good. You usually get a really good sound out of most of the stuff. But presets wise, I use quite a lot with Massive. They're really good. I use something that Dennis Salter. I saw YouTube with him doing a masterclass of his "It's Only Real"
hmm
with Point Blank.
Yep,
He uses a free plugin called Camel Crusher, which I use quite a lot. So
yep,
that is a really big saturator, compressor, and like an exciter and distortion plugin. So I'll usually like whack a preset onto my bass. You've obviously got to be quite critical with that because it can turn a good mix into a really bad no headroom mix on your lower end. So I'd really be careful with it, which I am. But I'll usually add a preset on there. Just have a little play with the presets on my bass, my sub and my tap bass. Um, See if it's adding more warmth or something to the track that I feel's missing. And
yep.
if it is, I'll keep it, and then I will obviously do the gain reduction and match it up and make sure that it's still the same level.
hmm
Because I think it's important to focus on using saturators and stuff like that. Will get you a very professional sound, but if it doesn't need that, then don't add it.
Yes.
Personally, I
Yeah.
think is important because it can really mess up the mix, especially if you're not hepped up on, if you're not clear on, it's adding a lot of volume that you can't necessarily hear.
Yep.
Because when I put it on my sub, usually a preset will add like maybe 5 dB or 3 dB to the sub,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's way out of line balance of my kick, which is just not going to be healthy for the rest of the mix. So you've got to be really clinical with that. Make sure
Okay.
these don't change the track a lot. They
Mhm.
make it better, but they don't mess up the mix entirely. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then other plugins I use is the Luf's loudness meter. I can't for the life of me think who it's from. Just to when I get mastering back, just see what it's like. Do a little master myself. I feel like that's quite a good tip to do. Whack a
Yep.
limiter on your master. Try and have a little play with that. Don't like EQ and things like that. Just see how loud you can get it yourself, and it'll
Mm-hmm.
really pull out certain elements that will uh, apply distortion, and then you can go in and change it before you send a P master off. I've
Gotcha.
learned that's
Yeah.
quite a good technique to use. But I don't, yeah, plugins I don't really use that many. Think on the master I use a spectrum analyzer just to see where all the frequencies are hitting. Um, yeah, plugins I'm very sparse with, to be honest. Don't really use that many.
I think a lot of the production platforms do provide really good stuff. You know, like you say, I mean, I use Reason. I think Reason provide really good stuff as well. And yeah, I mean, like I said, that information you've given right there was really good information. I thought, and
Yeah,
it benefits people. And going on to your radio show, then obviously you have a residency on Select Radio.
I do. Yeah.
And how did you come about getting that? And what was it like doing your first ever sort of radio show? And did you have
Oh,
any
good.
love for radio in the beginning as well? Actually, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I do. I did have a lot of love for radio. Obviously the base, the mainstream ones, Capital and all of those. But Select, I've listened to for a lot of years.
yeah, been around
I've
for a long
loved
time.
Select.
Mm.
They have been around for a very long time, and they've now just like skyrocketing themselves. They're always bettering themselves every day, every week. It's great to be a part of their team. I love their team. They're very friendly, warming, always up for giving new people opportunities to get involved as well and be presenters, which is lovely to see. They don't necessarily have like a wall up, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
I actually introduced a friend of mine in the scene who's been my guest, and she's been a guest on other people's shows. And I introduced to her on email to the program lead, and she's now got a show. So it's like nice to see that they'll take your word for it, um, like introducing someone. But I got into Select through doing an interview slash guest mix for Mascanada.
Okay.
I did that with them, and it was my first ever live radio kind of guest show.
Yep.
So I've done other radio shows before, but it's been like kind of what we're doing now, which is like on air, on Zoom and over pre-record and all that stuff. Um, and yeah, loved it. Got the buzz from it. You know when you do something and you walk away and you're like, oh my God, I need to do that more.
Yeah,
Like
that was
that's what I got from
sick.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah. And,
yeah, yeah.
and like I remember Kyle, who's one half of Mascanada, he was with me and Ross wasn't there on the day. And he went to the toilet halfway through and I just jumped on the mic and was like, this one's like this, that. And it was like, it was terrible. But it was like, it said to me, why did I do that? Like, you have that little bit of reflection of like, oh my God, I need to do it. I need to do it. So I left absolutely buzzing from the studio, went home, and that day I made a demo, tried my best to sound like a good presenter. Got the email from Kyle of the Select lead on programming, sent it, and then from there got a show.
Nice
So,
one, mate. Good for you.
but whether I know that, because I knew a few people on the show as well who have a slot. So I know Connor
Yeah.
Dawson, who's encore, who's on there. And I dropped him a one liner saying, oh, blah, 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 I'm going to apply and stuff like that. And he was like, oh, great. Whether they maybe backdoor said something to Joshua
Yeah.
or whoever's doing the lead, whether that helped, which I'm assuming it probably did, is a big thing. Like having that network and getting involved, rather than just sending a demo, I think is really important. I
Yeah.
think that helped, if you
And
know what I
like you
mean.
said as well about first impressions, obviously just presented yourself well and you like to be a happy person, and that's what people look for that, right? And that's a good sort of thing for, just anyone in life, really. I think that's
Yeah.
yeah,
To touch on get landing the slot as well, I did actually utilize social media.
yeah,
So I sent, excuse me, I did like a highlights of my time with Que Nada, and then I sent out I did put in the caption, who wants to see a show from Joe Tempo, and then I messaged private messaged everyone saying, "Oh, can you comment? Like I've sent a demo out. It'd be really good. It would really increase my chances at getting a show. Blah blah blah." And it was like I think I got like nearly 70 comments on it. And then I don't know if Select saw that. They might have done,
hmm
but like we've talked about, using social media as a business tool to leverage or look like some people want it as attention, because that's a big currency in the music industry is attention.
yeah,
Um, massive currency. If you've got more attention, you've got more everything.
yeah.
And I believe, I don't have full knowledge, but I do believe that had a little bit of an impact on it as well. Them maybe seeing all those comments, oh, we want a show, blah blah blah. Do you get what I mean? Like
Yeah, I
that
do.
might have
Yeah, yeah,
swung them that way a bit. So
yeah. And again, it's a good positive like encouragement to be like, wow, it's something I enjoy. I put it out there, and people obviously like me for who I am, and they want to see a Joey Tempo show, and that's what I did. And I've got to ask you, obviously the first name is Joey, I assume, but
it's Joe, but
it's
my
Joe.
but people do call me Joey. Yeah,
Yeah. And where did Tempo come from? Or is that actually a surname?
not my actual surname. I don't want to
Oh,
let you down, Brad. But
get it legally changed now.
so my very first name, which is dreadful, was called Dot Dash.
Right. How did
Because
that
I was
come?
like,
How
I
did that
was
come
like,
about?
oh God. And then I was like, I did a few gigs like at my Soho residency when I first started out, and I was like, it's every single show I did there was like dot dash this dot, and I was like, it's just not. It's when something's just always in your head, like it's just not working. So I was like,
Yeah.
I need to go back to the drawing board. I was like, what do I call myself? Went through so many names, and then I was just like at the decks one day, and the tempo slider.
hmm
You've got the tempo at the bottom. It literally says tempo, and I was just like, Joey, like think of your name, and then it just like I saw that, and I was like, Joey Tempo, like Joey, because I'm energetic, I'm happy, I'm bubbly, it's me. It's like, and I like to during my sets, I like to change the tempo quite a lot.
Yeah.
Like if there's a vocal that falls and it's just like a string or something like that before the drop, or it's like massive white noise into a breakdown that there's nothing underneath it. Quite like to like lower like a 130 to like 125. Not enough
Mm.
so that it completely depletes the energy out of the dance floor, because that's not good. But I think doing that really it switches it up a bit, it throws a bit of a curveball into the crowd, and the kind of like, instead of it just being 130 all night, which can be a bit boring. Not
hmm
saying that's bad, but it can be a bit repetitive, just 130.
Yeah.
Like I like doing that, so it kind of just it just naturally came around to being Joey
Keeping it
Tempo.
keeping it eclectic sort of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
that's sick.
works. People like
Yeah.
the names. It's like it's stuck. It works. So yeah.
And that's a good thing as well, is like as you talked about marketing yourself and stuff like that, finding a name that is gonna be like remembering and stuck. Do you know what I mean? Like it's gonna, Joey Tempo, it rolls off the tongue and you are gonna remember that. So that's another good thing for anyone listening, who wants to think of a DJ name. Don't go dot
I
dash, but go with Joey Tempo.
definitely don't go dot dash. And the worst part about dot dash was it was actually dot in writing, and then it was a dash, an actual dash, like a hyphen, and then
Yeah.
dash in the writing in the letters as well.
Oh
Terrible.
no.
That was the logo as well.
Don't worry, all we learn from our mistakes, hey Joe.
Awful. Absolutely awful.
That's cool, man. So how do you actually prepare for a radio station then? Like, tell me the bit of the background of like how the radio station sort of world works, because we all see a lot of DJ producer stuff online, but we never see actually like the radio side of it. So how do you plan
So
that?
I try to share the studio on my socials a lot because I think like people really like and connect with a lot of behind the scenes stuff on
Hmm.
socials. And it's showing a world like you just said that people don't necessarily get to see. I mean, you don't necessarily get to see Jaguar in BBC Introducing doing what she's doing every day, do you? Like what she's
No.
doing behind the microphone. I think
Yeah.
there's only a few clips I've seen of her what she's actually doing. But yeah, with Select, it's completely live mixing. So you're actually DJing while you're presenting, which can be a curse and a bonus at the same time because it gives you more freedom. But
Yeah.
if you're mixing and you're trying to present, that can go very wrong very fast. Um, but yeah, with it, it's preparing for a radio show. So I'll usually have because my show is called the All Out Show. So I like to go all out on different types of genre or like a guest each week.
And that's where you got the
Um,
name from as well, yeah? Because you like
yeah,
that. Yeah,
so
okay, yeah.
so like I like to like all out. This week we're going all out on hard dance. This week we're going all out on disco house. This week we're going all out on and so forth. And then when the guests come on, it's quite nice to say, "It's my pleasure to introduce to you all out the guest's name." It flows quite well. But the way I prepare it is I'll pick the genre or something like that, and I'll have like a list of what song's coming next because I feel like if you can entice someone to keep listening, like a hook, is very important because you could just go, "Oh, this week we've got loads of bangers coming up." Okay, it's like, yeah, great.
Going back to
If you can
the
say if you
going
can
back to the
say who they're from or like what like who art what artist it is,
yeah, yeah.
or if you, even if it's a 90s song and you go, oh, we're going to have a throwback in the next one from whoever, blah blah blah,
Yeah.
anything to entice and keep people hooked and keep people listening and engaged into you, I think is really important, especially in preparing, because if you go in there and you just go flying off the handle, which I've done before,
Yeah.
it can get a bit messy very fast and it can just be a bit like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know
So
my show is all about kind of showcasing certain music and
yes.
informing and educating people on it.
Yeah, yeah. So um that's kind of what I asked as well. So from a DJ set and a radio station set, with a DJ set you take people on a journey. Do you think the same concept is with that with radio then?
I feel like radio, I think it depends what station you're on. Select really like to value themselves off like underground, quite exclusive, inclusive music. So
Hmm.
trying to just offer it different to what you'd hear on Capital or BBC.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like so I plan more on my radio show because I want it to be informative and like educational. Like I'll have
Yeah.
the release date there. I'll have like maybe a memory that I've got of it to re-jog my mind, to share with the listeners, which I think is really nice. It really brings down that kind of fourth wall for people. I played this out last weekend and the dance floor was whatever, absolutely blew off. It always goes off and all that stuff. Or maybe you saw it at a festival you've been to and then you've gone away and you put it into your locker for another time. But yeah, I plan my radio shows way more than I do my DJ sets. So DJ sets, I usually I'll prepare a playlist of maybe 5 songs or 3 songs that I kind of want the night to go on in
Hmm.
line with the event that books me for, or I'm booked for, or to play for. And then I'll kind of just go off the whim, if you know what I mean. I'll kind of just
Yeah.
go with the flow, see what the crowd's vibing
Read the
off.
room and that, yeah.
Yeah, read the room. It's a big, big, big thing you need to do as a DJ, I
Yeah.
believe, because you could have one plan of action and then it's not working well, and then you kind of like, what's going to happen then? You can keep to that, but if the crowd's not responding to it, you're just going to keep playing that style of music or
Yeah,
that
yeah,
type of music in that genre, or you're going to switch it up a bit, something with more vocals. And then you drop that, and then they respond, and you keep playing the vocally stuff. It's
yeah,
important to really have that, that kind of mindset of being with them and seeing what they respond to as a DJ.
yeah. And with the radio show, when you have the guest on, what is the platform for that? And how like when I say the platform should actually word a bit different, like, but what's the structure to the radio your show? So do you have like a an introducing, then halfway through the mix, you kind of do a short interview, and then how does it work to explain to listeners that haven't heard your show before?
Yeah, so in when I have it's a bit hit and miss with the guests because obviously sometimes guests can like cut out last minute. They might not be able to make it, or something might happen in their life that they're going through that they can't get involved, even though they've been booked for so long, and that can happen. So I'll always plan like 2 hours, prepare them for 1 hour initially for just me and the listener. So it's usually just me and them, and then the second hour for the guest with questions, an introduction to them. Then they go off and do their mix. Then we'll have like a little interview at the start of the second hour, and then let them do a little bit of a mix. Stop them if they've got like a track that they've released or something like that, or they've made that they would bring to the table. We'll talk about that. Go into the second interview, and then kind of let them roll it out, and then I'll say goodbye. But it's 2 hours, 12 till 2 on Mondays in the afternoon on Select Radio, and it's good. It is a good vibe. I used to do Thursdays,
Yeah.
but it was way too early to get up for because I was in the breakfast shows, and I was like, I said to the lead, I was like, I can't do this anymore because I don't live like in London. I live just out of London,
Yeah.
Hemel Hempstead way. So
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's a bit tough to get to the studio. But yeah, every Monday, 12 till 2 p.m. It's great.
That's sick, mate. Yeah. I listened, like I said, I listened to your show with Law Mark, and I thought it was really good. The concept, the whole, the structure of it, and I love the fact that you said that people pull out, and because I've had that as well, myself included. Like there's things that happen in life you pull out, and you've got to find maybe someone, or you've got to skip one, and it can sometimes lose that bit of consistency. So I understand the struggle of trying to get people booked because it is a fucking extra bit of work on its own, right? Trying to
It can be, yeah. I
organize that.
mean, when you've got that artist in there and they're away, I can put my feet up and have a cup of tea. Like I can do what I want.
Yeah,
I'll take a
yeah,
few videos of them here and there, but I'll usually go downstairs, make myself a cup of tea, and them a cup of tea if they want one. And then they can just play what they want as long as there's no swearing because it's licensed, it's
yeah.
Ofcom registered. So definitely no swearing, which I've had before, and I told them off. Very naughty boy. Um,
Do you
but
have to say that, and do you have to just say sorry for the bad language, and then that's it, kind of
no,
thing?
no,
No.
just completely act as if it didn't happen. Just don't even raise it. It's way worse to bring up that they've sworn because it makes them feel uncomfortable on air, and it also makes like the listeners kind of realize it's happened. Have you
Yeah,
ever been listening to radio and like you've not really necessarily been listening to it? You just have it on the background. So
yeah,
nine times
yeah,
out of 10, they probably didn't even hear that little F word or something like that, or even that bad mixing, or even
yeah,
like your talking went bad or something. Because I've done it before where I've messed up with the talking. As long as you don't raise it so much, like you can kind of just let it slide under the carpet and get away with
yeah,
it. Because it's just the worst thing is to bring it up and go, "Oh, I'm really sorry that I just said that," because then people automatically hear that you did it.
yeah.
They
And then they'll
realize.
they'll never forget it.
Yeah, and then how do you come back from that? Well, here,
Yeah.
but anyway, this is the new track from whoever. It's like awkward.
That's
um,
cool.
but yeah, with the structure, I'll usually announce there is a guest when I first start the show coming on in the
Yeah,
second hour, and if they're not, I'll just say, "Oh, you've got 2 hours, just me and you. How lucky are you?" Blah blah blah.
yeah,
Really play on it a little bit.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I think it's important to play on what you're saying as well sometimes as well.
That's cool, man. And like, I was gonna say, is there like any sort of tips and tricks, anything else you'd like to sort of add to, that could benefit someone? I mean, we've touched on a lot of stuff that I think is very
Mm.
beneficial in the show, massively. Is there anything else you'd like to add with that?
Tips and tricks as in like in the industry
Yeah,
or
like, how to, write an email to approach a radio station like yourself to sort of put yourself forward. What are you looking for in that, Like, I should have been more
yeah.
specific. I'm just threw a ballpark,
No,
question out
yeah.
there, but yeah, like,
No, I
especially the
completely
radio
get
one.
yeah, I completely get what you're saying. I feel like the way that I kind of approach a lot of things with, because obviously, like we've said, it's music business. Like you've
Hmm.
obviously got to be good at what you do as an artist, as a talented creative. You've You've got to be able to mix properly. You've got to get that down right initially, and then you've got to look at it. You've got to almost take yourself out of just that shell a little bit and look at, you've got to look at how visible you are. You've got to look at your marketability, your name. How do you dress? How does Joey Tempo dress when he turns up to a gig? Does he turn up in just a tracksuit bottoms and tracks like a full tracksuit, and looks like he's just off the street? No, he'll wear something that is in line with his brand, but also what the venue's kind of after as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
How's your network? Is your network good? Is, almost like scope out a bit and score yourself. Really reflect on how that looks in like a little map. And then in these areas that you think are like 3 out of 10 or something like that, like really go back to it and go to the drawing board. How can I increase my network? Do I go to parties? Do I, can I utilize social media to do that? Really scope out, hone in on where your problems are, and try and come up with a plan of how to improve them. I feel like doing that, scoring yourself, is a really big tip. I feel like if you score yourself on visibility, because I did that when I first started out, what am I doing that makes me visible to promoters? What am I doing? Is my network good? It was like terrible at the beginnings, but I went to loads of parties and I just made little connections here and there. I messaged people that were in the scene. Just little things like that would really help.
That's good, yeah. And no, actually, now you touch on that, like with the whole scoring yourself and stuff. I and I've never said this to anyone actually, but I always used to dress like, like I hate to say it, the fucking Prada shoes, the jeans, and the fucking D squared. I used to, when I was younger, kind of dress like that, I guess, and then a little bit indie-ish, but I've always been. I know, I grew up in Kansas State. I've always wore tracksuits and more gold when I was a kid. Always did, right?
Mm.
And now I'm older and I don't give a fuck about what I look like. I do
Yeah.
present myself well and I do, obviously try to be respectful and respect to myself in like, present yourself well, dress nice, buy nice tracksuits. So I do wear tracksuits and jeans. I wear TNs still,
Yeah.
I wear gold, and I
Yeah.
felt like, it's me back as my old self, like, and I say to myself, again, you're so right with the scoring thing. I look at myself and go, but that doesn't really suit the house scene, though, does it? It suits more the drum and bass scene. But then I
I
think to
mean,
myself, you got to stand out a bit, like you said, with that as well. So,
yeah, I mean, don't take it the way what I've just said as in like changing who you are.
oh no, no,
That's
no,
not what.
no, 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 no,
No,
no,
no,
no,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, but like that's not what I mean by that. I mean like I don't think you took it that way. But if anyone has took it that way, that's going to listen to this, definitely don't get that from what I said. Or by all means, like be authentic to yourself. Don't change you like at all, and don't let anyone tell you to change yourself or be this certain way because it's your life. You can never
yeah,
let anyone should never let anyone tell you how to live your life, like
yeah,
ever. Stay
yeah,
true to yourself, and especially in the scene, if you're just an honest guy, you're a good guy, you're out to help the scene. You're linking people up. You're like, because that's what I do an awful lot. I try my hardest to link promoters up with promoters who are looking to. I have promoters that reach out to me because I'm on radio and whatever, and say, "Oh, do you know anyone that has venues that I could do things with?" Or, "Oh, can we have guests on your show?" and things like that. If you can be that person to link an industry head up with another industry head, you're going to be like up here in their mind, and they're going to think about you.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, definitely just stay true to yourself. Like if you want to wear that tracksuit, by all means wear that tracksuit to your gig.
Yeah, yeah,
Like no
yeah. I
one's
wasn't, I wasn't saying that I
yeah,
was
yeah,
trying. Yeah, no, don't. I didn't take it the wrong way at all. It's just it made me reflect on myself, funny actually enough, because I thought I'll do the podcast now. I just found it funny, that's all. Uh,
yeah.
and I did a podcast, and I was like, "You're right. You have got to have an image, right? There's DJs that wear masks, like Marshmello, and
Marshmallow, yeah. Literally,
yeah, and
he's just that's just jumped straight into my head, and that proves how effective that is.
yeah,
Instantly, you recognize it. Yeah, it's mad.
and Dead Mouse and Boris Brescia, whatever you say his name.
Got it. Yeah.
But
With it.
when I did the podcast, I was like, I should go back to my old ways of wearing gold and like Goldie, like iconic
Hmm.
fucking D&B guy, and he had the gold teeth. That's not in
Yeah.
fashion, but that's him and his brand and how he looks, and that's his name. So
It
that's
comes down to marketability, really, doesn't it?
yeah,
It's
that's what I was getting at when you said
yeah.
about that. So sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
make it sound like yeah,
I didn't think you did. I was just
yeah.
making that clear that I didn't want anyone listening to this to take that way,
Oh, yeah,
because
it's all
that's
good.
not
Yeah,
what.
nah,
Absolutely 100% be authentic to yourself.
yeah,
I don't want to come across as like you have to have this image and you have to be fake, because that will get you nowhere. Like there's so many people that do that and they're just like you see right through them and you're just like, oh my god,
yeah, man.
okay, calm down a bit.
Yeah, like you say, going back
But
to the social media thing, isn't it? Like that, isn't
yeah,
it? You know?
yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, other things to add really. Just be a genuine guy. Just be nice. Just be a nice person. It doesn't take a lot to just be nice, and it goes a long way. And
yeah,
also other things like emails. Emails, like, they're a nightmare, but they work. They do work. You know, headhunt who that promoter is, who that radio programmer is, because that's what I did. You know, I
yeah,
headhunted who he was, um, and I emailed him. I got his email online. It was literally there for anyone to view. It's not. I didn't like. It's not like a breach of his privacy. He literally has it on his Instagram, his email. So do you
yeah,
see what I'm saying? Like, have
yeah,
that
yeah,
little, like, spend a few hours researching. You know, your internet is one of your biggest tools of the modern day. Like, use it to your strengths. Like, definitely use it and follow up on that email. Just because someone's not replied to you in 2 days or 3 days, even a week, I've had before, even over a week, I've had someone not get back to me, and then they've just out of the blue got back to me and said, "Can you play for me this day?" Or I've followed up like 10 times,
yeah,
and they've
yeah,
eventually got back. Just because they've not got back doesn't mean it's a no. They've just probably not
yeah,
seen it. People are busy, like,
yeah,
and if you don't have that kind of resilience to keep slamming on the door, I don't think you're that worthy of having that opportunity. Does that
yeah,
make sense?
yeah. That makes perfect sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and
As
it's good.
brutal as that might sound.
No, it's all good info, mate. And honestly, you've been so like good with like just information and just explaining things, you know. And again, another one is LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn's a big one that a lot of people really don't either know about or think about because that's their business profile. You know, you got
Yeah.
the Instagram stuff, but when it comes to business, like LinkedIn is a good one
If
because you get a lot of stuff on there, right? Yeah.
a lot of people in on LinkedIn, um, you can usually get their emails and their contact details from there. It's
Yeah.
very good. And a lot of people, because obviously it's an underground, they don't think people in music have LinkedIn and all this stuff, but everyone on radio and events usually are in a company that
Yeah.
will all have a business profile set up, and they will have a LinkedIn profile because either they've done it themselves because they want to look professional, or the business company has asked them to make it so that they're like in their channels, their
Yeah,
music,
yeah.
they're like message channels. So they're all going to be on there. Like, don't ever forget about LinkedIn, because it's not a corporate, it's not seen in the music industry as like a tool. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
yeah.
I don't know why it's not,
I know what
because
you
it
mean
is
though,
in
yeah.
industry.
Yeah.
Like, it should be seen. Like, Instagram is seen all the time as like something to do with music, but
Yeah.
LinkedIn is always forgotten about, I think. And I've got loads of emails from LinkedIn before and contact details that I've linked people up with, and yeah, it really does help.
That's good. That's good to know. And do you just use Instagram or do you utilize as much of the social media platforms as much? Because it's quite a lot to keep on top of all of them, but do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So,
So when I first started out, I tested all of them, and it was hectic. It's chaos. Could not keep one growing like I wanted the other one to. So I usually just stick to Instagram. Instagram
hmm
is like my, yeah. I love Instagram. I think it's great for an artist, creative, anyone in that kind of sector to use. I think it's amazing. TikTok, I did start using, and I'm only just now kind of thinking about using, because apparently word on the street is it's really good for producers, getting your music out there.
Okay.
So I'm gonna have a bash at that. But yeah, things like Facebook, Twitter. I don't use Twitter. Um, I just use Instagram, WhatsApp. I use to message people, and just my own newsletter. Really, I just have a little database of my own email chain, and yeah, just use that.
Oh,
That's it.
nice. Nice.
Feel like if you have one platform and you do well at it and you hone in on that and you
Yeah.
put all your strength in that, that's better than having like spreading your eggs out in loads of baskets and all of them kind of being there. If you have one up there until you're like at Jamie Jones level or something like that,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? Like, until
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can just
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
all over everywhere.
Yeah.
I think that's more important when you're starting out. I have one profile that's really good, really clean, looks great, almost like a shop window. Like get it looking like that first.
That's a good way of looking at it, actually. Yeah, you're right. Shop window.
Like
Yeah.
a shop window. If you go to a shop window or a restaurant and you don't see anyone eating in it, you're going to walk straight past. If you go to one and there's like everyone sat in the windows, they're all eating at it, you're going to be like, stop and look at the menu. That's
Hmm.
similar to what social media's I see social media kind of like.
Yeah.
Like have your first 9 squares on your Instagram pop in. Have it like of you doing what you do. Have it of a behind the scenes thing in the studio. Have it of your music. Have like different things that all tell a story about you, but it's like a menu, what you offer. I
Yeah.
feel like that really helps.
That's a good way of looking at it, actually. I never looked at it like the window thing, and that's a really good way of putting it, actually. Yeah, I didn't think of that because my arrangement on Instagram is shit, but I'm trying to get better as I go.
It's
So yeah,
difficult, mate. It's
yeah,
difficult.
yeah,
It's hard to
fuck.
keep it up as well. Once you've got it to a level, it's like, oh my God, do I have to do another post? Do I have to really plan another post? Because all I want
Yeah,
to do really now in my time now, what point I'm at is just make music.
yeah, man. So moving forward, then, what are the future plans for Joey Tempo
The
that you
future
can
for me
reveal? Yeah,
that I can reveal.
yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of there's I have some stuff in the works for even 2025, um, which is that might potentially be a festival that I've booked for in Croatia, brand new festival, because I know someone who is starting that up. Um, but yeah, I mean, for the future, it's just mainly clubbing in London at Fire. I've got the residency there, building the radio on Select. And then, yeah, hopefully releasing music in 2024 and first, hopefully, get my first big festival booking. That's what I really want to break into is festivals.
yeah, yeah,
I've played some Pride festivals this year, which was an amazing experience. Um, but a big festival would be like a dream, really. It's like mad.
yeah, man. Festivals are good. They are good. I mean, I like the small intimate clubs. You know, you just got like the booth there, and like, but festivals are a different breed. They are really, really
Yeah,
good fun. Yeah.
just being in a field as a raver, like going to Part Life and those like for consecutive years, being on the other end of delivering the music for the crowd would just be like, oh, mad. I'd love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this month I've got Halloween event at Beyond, and then I'm playing in Ipswich for Halloween takeover as well, Pulse Club or something like that. I don't know what
Okay. Yeah.
the nightlife is quite like in Ipswich, but should be all right. Should be good.
Cool. I mean, and also I was going to actually ask you actually, how do you think the scene's my kind of as we've come to an end here? How do you think the scene is looking nowadays in regards to we've got the drum sheds that's just opened up, pretty much shut down, and just clubs in general, like the health of the scene, like in your eyes, because obviously you meet and see a lot of people and go to a lot of parties,
Yeah,
like.
it's a really good question because it's like, I mean, I could sit here and be quite cliche and be like, oh, it's dying and blah 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 and all that
Hmm.
stuff. But I mean, being in it, like, yeah, I do see some venues and bars and clubs and stuff really struggling. I do see that. But if you look a bit deeper and you look in the places where, they've got a good team around what they're doing, they know their market, they know their audience, they know what their market wants, they know what they shouldn't do, they've got the credibility there. They're not struggling. Like I play it Beyond very regularly in Fire, and they're packed every weekend.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I have
yeah,
people say to me, "Oh, it's like the night scene's struggling," but you go to Fire on a Saturday, Friday night, and it's like doesn't matter what hour of what morning it is rammed. Like it's
yeah.
crazy. And it's like to me, it's like I don't know what people are talking about, but then again, maybe I'm just not in the place is where they are really struggling a
Yeah.
lot. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
I think mainly the weekdays in London are being hit quite hard.
Really, because they used to be popping really good, didn't they? Thursday nights and stuff, and yeah,
Thursday, I play in Soho, and it's so hit and miss. Like some Thursdays, it'll be really busy towards like 12,
yeah,
whereas I finish at 1. So it's kind of like you've only got an hour to really have a good party.
yeah,
And then like over Thursdays, it's just like dead. But then you fast forward to the Friday after, and it's heaving. It's absolutely mad.
Yeah, it's
Like
crazy, isn't it?
the weekdays, bouncing off your question, is I think they're struggling quite a bit from my experience in like Soho and stuff.
Yeah.
But the weekends, I think they're as fine as they used to be.
And what do you think moving forward as you know, as you have your show and have my podcast and just as DJs producers as seen as a collective, what do you think it needs like to help boost the scene, whether it be like the bar life or the club culture or um do we need more people on the ground for like, you know, cleaning up clubs or just you know what I mean, like the things that we don't talk about. Everyone talks about the DJ and the promoter and everything like that, but just the small things that make a club, you know, the bar industry, like anything like this. Do you think there's anything that we need to do to help prop up the scene and build it back to what it was?
Yeah, it's quite difficult though, man. It's like because us as people in this country in the UK, we're very limited of what we can really do.
Hmm.
Like obviously we can do a whole lot, but we can't always do things for free, and we can't always do things like off our own back for
Yeah,
people. Like there's
yeah,
got to be a like line where you go, come on, like we need some compensation for helping out. Because I've played as a DJ before for free for loads of times, and then they almost like
same,
expect it to continuously be free. It's like,
same,
well, hang
same.
on, I've got to put bread on the table, mate. Like
Yeah,
I can't be eating a metal plate, like a
yeah,
ceramic plate even. But I think coming away from DJs and promoters, I don't really know. Um, I mean, people who are like behind the bars, they usually actually are quite happy where I play. Um, I'm not too sure, to be honest, mate.
yeah. It's
Quite a
just a
really
someone.
difficult question. I
Yeah,
don't
someone
know.
asked me and just said like, what you know, because everyone thinks like you know a DJ sound system and that's it makes a night, but like obviously like we've both said, clubs are struggling. You know, and what can we do as you know as musicians, promoters, whatever, to help bring that kind of back up? Yeah.
Yeah,
Someone asked me,
difficult
I
one.
thought I'd let off to you.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, as
Yeah.
us as musicians and stuff, it's like, I mean, we're the creative people. We're the people that keep people there when they're there. Like
Yeah.
we're the ones
Yeah.
that have the responsibility of keeping the night alive. So if that night's not already alive, like we're kind of pulled out of the picture.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, because I play in some Soho venues, and the promoter the other week, I had to laugh, but I also was like, oh my God, really? He literally said, like, you're such a good DJ, blah blah blah, but the nights are so quiet on the weekdays, and I was like, okay, like maybe it's the sound, maybe it's the music I'm playing, and he was like, no, I don't think it's that. He was like, I think it's just like the nightlife. I think people are after something different, or it's not drawing. The music's great, but it's just not drawing people in. And he was like,
Hmm.
oh, I could put like a drag queen with pink hair on a Thursday night till like 1 a.m., have her sing on the tables, and that probably pack the venue. And I was just
Yeah.
like, I was like, you just said that to me, and I'm like, you're literally telling me you could potentially be just be pulling me out of a job, like
Yeah.
so. But that's like, it's what do you do as a business when
Yeah.
so much, you obviously love what you're doing and that's your identity, but if it's not making you money as a business, and which is the fundamentals of a business is to do, make
Hmm.
money and offer a service for people,
Yeah.
what do you do? You know?
Yeah. I think I think like it's like with anything. I think like you know like with the small pubs, they're all shutting down. And you just have the big pubs now, right? I think back when I was clubbing when I was younger, you had more of the smaller clubs that had. I lived in Kent most of my life, and
Mm.
you had like four different small bars. There's one called R Bar. It could only hold literally probably about 150 people, but it was packed all the time because you had like
Yeah.
you had like minimal house and like you know proper deep like chill relaxing house, and you had another one that only held 300 people that would have Carl Cox play there and Nick Van Tuley and you know, and I think the smaller venues are kind of something that build up the foundation of that part. I could be wrong, but that's just from my own experience. Like,
Yeah, I
from back in
mean,
the day.
I'm always a big fan of be a smaller venue and be it more intimate than typically a bigger venue.
Yeah.
Depends what you're after on the night, obviously.
Mm.
But I'm always like a big champion supporter of like side rooms. I love side
Yeah,
rooms.
man.
I think
Yes,
they are literally the most lit room on a night out ever. Because
definitely.
usually they've got less people, so you can dance. You've got no sticky, sweaty people walking into you with their
Yeah,
tops
yeah.
off, going, "Woo," or whatever they're doing.
What they're
And it's
doing,
usually
yeah.
just more intimate vibe. You can usually go to the bar, get a drink because no
Yeah.
one's waiting, and the
Yeah.
music's
Yeah.
usually better and clearer because there's less people.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Oh, mate, yeah, I'm so thankful you gave me your time today to explain, who you are as a person and your sound, everything that you do. I really appreciate it, and everything, or all the information that's definitely going to benefit someone. And
yeah, well,
I'll definitely in the YouTube and all that. I'll put all the link to you, like the radio station, yeah, socials. I'll link all that down in descriptions and stuff. And then yeah, mate, I appreciate your time. I really do.
I really appreciate that, Ryan. Thank you for having me on. We've had a really good long chat. It's been
Yeah, it's
great.
been long. Like I do chin wag a lot. I'm not gonna lie. I do
But this
waffle.
is what podcast is all about, isn't it? It's great.
Yeah, and
But
yeah,
sometimes me and my guests get into that a lot of talky stuff like this because as DJs producers we could just talk like forever about what we
yeah,
love
man.
because we're passionate about it.
Yeah,
Um, and anyone scoping in on that who can take inspiration is great, but usually people don't necessarily understand what we talk about, so they just switch off. Whereas
yeah,
we're like
yeah,
we bounce off because it's very you need to know what we're talking about to really get into it.
yeah,
And we sometimes do that on my show on the radio and it's
yeah.
like can be a little bit too long, but I do prefer that. I prefer talking. I think it's great.
Yeah, I always say to people, I said, music people are geeks. I say to people, I'm a geek with
Very nerdy.
music. Very nerdy
Very
geek. Yeah,
nerdy.
I'm very nerdy in music, right? And and I say to people like just the beauty of the scene is helping each other out and just loving the music. That's why I did the podcast because during COVID, like music, everyone did through COVID, right? I love music. I love talking about it. I love geeking out about it, and I love meeting people and talking about it. So, fuck it, why not start a podcast? So,
Yeah,
and I love to chat shit.
no, I think it's brilliant. I think what you're doing, you like I kind of do in my show on the radio, is give someone a platform to talk about themselves, their experiences, um, and motivate people in the scene, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a lot. I feel like the music industry doesn't do enough of it as it is as
yeah,
a basis. I feel like I don't know why, but it's very not restrict. I don't think it's restricted. I just don't think that it's done enough. Like talking about the full backstory of an artist, like it's very rare. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah,
that's what because you've asked me questions today, which I would probably ask on my radio show. Is like
yeah,
really like getting your teeth into like who that person is on your show. Whereas you could go to a different radio show, which obviously I won't name or throw them under the bus. Um, but they will just go, oh, what DJ are you? Like, oh, what's coming up next? And oh, this release is coming out. Do you know what I mean? Like that's just the
yeah,
basics.
yeah,
You can really get your teeth into someone's life and a bit of a backstory. I think that's really important because then that inspires people and people
yeah.
connect to it more. And that's the podcast.
Yeah,
So it's great.
and I think what you're like the way your life growing up with music is define your sound, and then what and I'm like, what defines that sound? Like what like your sound is this, right? But where did it come from? Do you know what I mean? Like I'm a bit like that, so I was like, I'd love to know, and I don't care like if you started with fucking this or that, or whatever. I don't care, but I'd just like to know how it got about, and it's
Yeah.
just the way it is, right? But.
Great. I've enjoyed talking about stuff and raising a few points that hopefully will help people out, inspire people, and yeah,
Yeah, I'm glad you've enjoyed it, mate. That's what I like to come away from doing it is that people enjoy their time doing like being on this, and I love what you do with the show as well. I think it is a lot different from what you do. Well, like you just said, what you hear on other shows. Um, from what I've seen and listened to, like you say, you get
yeah,
into dive in their teeth, but you still understand their sound, listening to a good mix, and it's fun and bubbly
yeah,
as well, like you said. So it is
yeah.
good
Not
to listen to.
necessarily. pulling it too far away from the music.
Yeah.
Keeping it still like musically orientated can be quite
Yeah.
difficult. Because when like we're doing now, like when you go on a tangent with each other, you can just talk for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like to the guest, I'm like look at them and I'm like, but let's go back to the music because it's
Yeah.
like the
Yeah. Yeah.
listener at the end of the day turns the radio on to hear music. Like that's what you
Yeah.
do usually.
Yeah.
And the guest is usually there just to do a mix. But yeah, if I can do similar to what you do on this with people on the show, I really like doing it, and it means a lot.
Yeah, I think you got a good blend, mate. I really do. Yeah, I think it's good. So, yeah, thanks for doing that. I appreciate it, mate.